Hey there, and welcome to Explosive Enterprises. As a team, we have a borderline embarrassing amount of experience with this hobby, and over those many years of airsofting, it's been exceptionally rare for a piece of equipment to become ubiquitous with the entire group. One of those rare pieces of equipment is the electric speedloader, and for us, it was specifically the EMG Autobot. It's reasonably priced, easily available, reliable, at least so far, and does what it says on the tin, which is loading your mags quickly without putting up a fuss. It took a bit for other manufacturers to jump on the bandwagon and compete, but as of recording, the number of options for electric speedloaders had increased significantly. Today, we're going to take a look at one of the more upmarket options in the space, the T238 Pro speedloader. Full disclosure, this speedloader was sent to us for free by T238, but funny enough, it actually kind of just showed up at the door one day with no correspondence or expectation of us producing any kind of content around it. So anything you see here is entirely our own opinion. With the loader, you receive a series of loading adapters and conveniently an 1100 mAh 11.1 volt LiPo battery. T238 also provided us with a spread of 3D printed adapters for different replicas, including ones that use Glock 17 style mags, GBLS mags, and Systema PTW mags. But these adapters are all sold separately normally unless you have your own 3D printer, in which case T238 has all their 3D printed upgrade parts listed for free on Thingiverse. I've really got to hand it to them. I personally think that's a fantastic idea, and I really hope more manufacturers start doing the same thing. The vast majority of the loader is made of clear polycarbonate, with the main body being split into a top and a bottom chamber. The top chamber contains the BB hopper, loading tube, the upper half of the battery compartment, and the electronic controls, including a screen and a 5-position switch. The bottom half contains the battery connector, the motor, gearbox, and additional control electronics. Overall, the main body is kind of an inconvenient shape for loading into a pouch compared to the Autobot at 95mm wide, 95mm long, and 137mm high, or 3.75 inches wide, equally long, and 5.4 inches high, compared to the Autobot, which is a bit thinner and more ergonomic in terms of on-field carry. Each of the two internal compartments are held into the main body of the launcher by 4 screws. Once we have all 8 screws removed, we can separate the two halves and see how this thing works. At a glance, it's very similar to the Autobot, with the loading tube being able to slide up and down on a spring. When pressed down by a magazine, the loading tube presses on this small arm, which actuates a microswitch, and then activates the motor. Unlike the Autobot, the T238 loader has a number of feedback sensors built into it, including a revolution counter, current and voltage monitor, and a thermistor. These facilitate a bunch of interesting safety and functional features, which we'll take a look at in a bit. The motor has an internal gearbox with metal gears connected to a shaft that directly drives the POM feed wheel, which in turn drives a smaller gear that serves as a BB agitator to keep the flow from the hopper consistent. And yes, when we say the motor shaft directly drives the feed wheel, we mean that there are no slip clutches or other physical safety mechanisms that would prevent the loading gear from taking the full 160-something newtons of torque that this motor can provide. However, as we mentioned, the T238 loader has a current monitoring sensor built in, which cuts off the motor if a stall is detected. Speaking of stalls, the POM feed wheel is able to provide 23.5 newtons of loading force, which, according to T238, is enough to easily load stiffer magazine springs like those found in PTS EPM mags. While we haven't had any issues with the POM feed gear or the ability of that overcurrent detection circuit to prevent it from breaking, T238 does offer a metal replacement gear, which makes us slightly suspicious of the long-term durability of the stock one. We'll see how that goes. In addition to the overcurrent stall protection, there's also heat protection via a temperature sensor that will slow down the motor once the PCB reaches 85 degrees Celsius, according to T238. We've run this unit pretty hard and have never managed to trigger the overheat protection, but we live in the northeastern United States and it is winter, so maybe that feature's more intended for warmer climates. The loader also has a built-in battery voltage monitor, so it will automatically shut down when the voltage reaches the critical level of the LiPo you have installed, and it is capable of detecting if a 2 or 3 cell LiPo is being used. The final item of note on the bottom of the loader is the battery compartment, which is accessed by removing this cover held in place by a single Phillips head machine screw. It's not really a deal breaker, but using a screw here instead of a friction fit or snap fit cover is an annoying bit of over-engineering. Needing a screwdriver to access the battery compartment in the first place is kind of annoying, and the screw isn't even captive, so it'd be extremely easy to lose on the field. The battery compartment is clearly intended to fit the included T238 branded 11.1 volt 1100 mAh LiPo, but if you purchased a version of the loader without a battery, it will accept anything that fits in the 105mm long, 18mm wide, and 18mm high envelope of the battery compartment. Moving to the upper portion of the loader, the majority of the space is taken up by the 1800 round BB hopper, which has hash marks molded into the side to give you an idea of the number of BBs you have left. BBs go in through this loading door next to the feed tube, which also has a nice recess cut in it to collect any BBs that fall out during the loading process. The loading door is replaceable, and T238 offers this handy upgrade version, which includes a tube that can be used to unload magazines back into the hopper. The top of the loader also houses a monochrome OLED screen and a 5-position switch used to navigate the user interface, which we'll get into in the next section. Regarding the 5-way switch, it's worth noting two things. One, if the battery is pressed all the way into the battery compartment, it interferes with the switch's ability to move down, which is a bit annoying. And two, that these little circuit board 5-way switches that the thumbstick is attached to are not really designed to put up with any serious punishment. The thumbstick doesn't seem to have any over-travel stops, so if you wrench on that too hard, you might damage the switch underneath, so be careful there. Additionally, there's no twist functionality on this switch, despite it being worryingly easy to twist, so make sure to avoid that as well. You can see that ours has already started to get a bit loose, and it seems like that might be due to it being transported in the bottom of a backpack. We'd recommend transporting it in a way that the 5-way switch won't get bumped too hard. Once the battery is plugged in, you turn the loader on by pressing in on the 5-way switch. This is honestly kind of a crappy way of doing it, since the switch would be very easy to press accidentally while the loader was bouncing around in a pouch. On the main screen, you're provided with a weirdly large amount of information from a device that is going to be loading BBs into your mags, including the total on time for the current session, the amount of BBs loaded into the most recent mag, the BB feed rate measured in BBs per second, the total number of BBs loaded during the current session, the battery voltage, and finally the preset amount of BBs that will be loaded, or if you're doing continuous feed, an infinity symbol. Pressing up and down on the thumbstick cycles between continuous loading mode and a few common magazine capacities, 30, 50, 120, and 250. If those four options don't match your magazine capacity, you can fine-tune the preset by pressing left and right on the switch, or pressing and holding for faster adjustment, up to 999 BBs. The longer you press and hold, the faster the number adjusts, which is always a nice feature. Pressing in on the thumbstick brings up the options menu. Here you can make some pretty reasonable adjustments to the electronics, such as the screen brightness, display auto shutoff time, and the automatic shutdown time for the entire loader. All of these are adjusted by pressing up and down to select the option, and then left and right to change the setting. You also have the option to view the overall record of the loader in terms of BBs loaded and total on time, if that's important to you for whatever reason. At the bottom of the options menu, you can either press in on the switch to go back to the main screen, or power the loader down. To insert a loading nozzle, you line up these tabs, press in, and rotate 90 degrees clockwise, which locks the nozzle in place once you release it. Once you fill the loader with BBs, it's a matter of selecting your BB capacity and sticking a mag onto the nozzle. Note that you have to prime the tube to fill it with BBs, or you won't get an accurate fill on your first mag. The loader automatically stops when it hits the selected number, or when you remove the mag from the nozzle. The loading force seems to be perfectly adequate, so let's see how long it takes to load all of these mags. My kingdom for a Doom level transition effect. Anyway, while the continuous loading mode common to most electric speed loaders is fine, it really is nice to have the automatic BB counter, especially for mags like TM-style shotgun shells that might fool you into thinking they're full when in reality they just bound up. With that BB counter feature, it's actually really hard to get this thing to overload or jam up, but just to show you, you can see that the loader will beep, stop loading, and then attempt to clear any jams by cycling the gears 3 times. It'll also warn you when you run out of BBs, but given that the entire body is clear, that should be pretty obvious. With the upgraded loading door, you can also unload your mags very quickly using the attached nozzle, and it's nice that you don't have to remove the loading nozzle to do so like you do on the Autobot. For this review, we're going to merge our usual practicality assessment in with the conclusions, since they're pretty much the same thing here. From a functionality perspective, the T238 Pro is tough to beat. The advanced electronics offer a bunch of convenient features that you don't see on other electric speed loaders, and help with the longevity of the loader and your batteries. The BB capacity is fantastic, and at 1800 is one of the highest that you can get for speedloaders in this price range. The loading force is strong, and BBs are fed into the mags quickly. Absolutely no complaints there. As for downsides, it's not the best loader for carrying around in the field. The 5-way switch is a bit of a weak spot, and overall it's not a great shape for fitting into most pouches. And if stored in a backpack, anything bumping the switch would be repeatedly turning it on, draining the batteries, so it's really more of a staging area or safe zone tool. Using lipos as batteries is kind of inconvenient, since that's just one more thing to remember to charge and discharge, but it's a common feature of many electric speedloaders, so kind of hard to fault it there.
Catcat here for a dissenting opinion. I actually really like the use of lipos for electric box mags and mag loaders. Not only does it give them a lot more power than a tray of AA's or AAA's, it means never having to worry about batteries running dead in the middle of a game. I just charge to storage voltage after each game, and even without fully charging before use, these use so little power that I've never come close to running a battery dead.
He's got a point, but he's failing to take into account the fact that some of us have the working memory of a chipmunk and can barely remember to put our primary weapons batteries into storage voltage, let alone remembering to do it on a speedloader. Your mileage may vary. Anyway, for our final point, while the electronic features are really nice, some of them feel a bit unnecessary, particularly the loading statistic tracking, which kind of just clutters up the menus and display. The T238 loader is available directly from T238, or at least in the US, from their Amazon page. This loader is definitely more upscale in terms of pricing, so we'll leave it up to you to determine if that extra cost is worth the extra features. Well, that's all for this one. If you have any questions or feedback, please leave a note in the comments section below. And if you're interested in supporting us further, please check out our merch store or our Patreon. Links to both in the description. And as always, thanks for watching.